Hey guys, Redneck Mini 14 here, and you're looking at the very first rifle that I ever shot. This is, of course, my grandfather's Stevens 53D. This was, I believe, his very first rifle that he ever owned, given to him by his father when he was 12, maybe 13 years old. And he just kept it all these years, kept it in his closet. Shot some snakes with it. I'm sure he's shot squirrels and other things also. But this was the very first rifle that I ever shot when I was about 8, 9 years old, back when I was just shooting BB guns. And the ammunition I actually shot through it was some of this birdshot. I don't know if the camera will actually focus on it, but this is a 22 birdshot round. It's the only birdshot round that I actually found when I cleaned out all of my grandfather's ammunition. But this is what I shot through it back when I was a kid. And that's what he shot through it a lot too, was that he just kept a few of these birdshot rounds in his truck, and he would shoot snakes with it, shoot rabid animals or whatever. I'm not really sure. The last time I seen him shoot this gun was to shoot a water moccasin, a snake. But anyway, this is a single shot 22 bolt action, and it is empty. And there's really not a whole lot to say about it. It does have iron sights, adjustable in the rear, and a basic blade in the front, which is windage adjustable, although I was not able to actually adjust it. I was able to get the rear sight off when I was getting all the rust off. I did get the majority of the rust off. There is a little bit here and there, but the majority of the rust that was on this rifle has been cleaned off. I did take it all apart and kind of just clean it up. I would still like to refinish the wood somehow. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this, if I'm going to keep the black or sand it off and then just stick with an all wood stock. I'm not really sure. I mean, this is just paint or some sort of a stain, but I do kind of like the look of that, so I might find some black stain or something and just kind of keep that black. But anyway, let's talk about the rifle. So this is actually a very simple rifle. And of course it's simple, it's a single shot 22 bolt action, but it's actually more simple than I thought it was. I never really took the time to think of how the mechanics of a bolt action 22 rifle actually work. But I did take this gun apart, not completely, but I did take it apart, and it is a lot like a lot of 22 bolt action rifles today. It has a very short bolt compared to my other rimfire bolt actions, and it's all one piece, or at least the actual silver part is all one piece, as opposed to having two pieces that pivot on each other. So it's one piece, has the bolt handle there, has a claw extractor here, and it actually has a floating ejector. I don't know if my camera will actually focus on it or not, but you have an ejector right here. Instead of relying on spring tension to eject the rounds, the ejector and the firing pin, but the ejector is floating. There are no springs in this bolt. Well, except for the striking mechanism, but that's different. So you have your trigger comes up right here, and you have to pull the trigger to get the bolt in and out. But once you push the bolt in, and the face of the chamber actually pushes the round that it picks up that the bolt picks up pushes the floating ejector back into the bolt, and when you pull it out to eject the round, the floating ejector catches on where the trigger catches the bolt in here and ejects the round instead of relying on spring tension. So that's kind of cool. I've never actually seen that done. Every other rifle with this style of ejector that I've seen is spring loaded. So that's kind of cool. And like I said, the firing pin is also free floated instead of having a spring in that, but the firing pin is pushed by the striking mechanism just like any other 22 bolt action. I haven't dry fired this. I don't want to dry fire it, but you know, that's all pretty simple. The safety is right here next to the receiver, and it's actually backwards than what you would think. Every other bolt action that I own, forward is fire and backwards is safe. On this gun, forwards is safe and backwards is fire. And actually, you can't even open the bolt, as you've seen from my last video. You can't open it all the way with the gun on safe, and that's because the way the safety works is when you push it forward, it actually blocks the trigger from being pulled, and since the trigger goes up and the bolt rides where the top of the trigger is, if it's on safe, it won't pull back. So it's kind of interesting. The trigger itself actually makes up for some other parts that you would actually find on newer bolt actions. So that's just kind of the rundown of the Stevens Model 53D. Not a whole lot to say. It's very easy to take apart. You have a screw down here, and it's actually, if you just loosen it a little bit, and then you can loosen it all the way with your hand. The trigger guard is aluminum, or at least I think it's aluminum. It's not steel, and it actually, I guess the finish or whatever was originally on it has worn off over the years because it's gray. At first I thought maybe it was plastic, and I was very disappointed, but it's actually aluminum, so that's cool. The bolt is, I guess it's nickel plated, and so is the trigger, and that's kind of flaking off on the one side here, which is kind of a shame. I'm not sure if there's anything I can do about that or not. I'm not an expert on like finishes, whether it's on metal or on wood. So I'll have to talk to my great uncle about that, see what we can do. I would like to refinish the stock at some point and make it look nicer. It looks very rough right now, probably because it was just kind of in the back of a closet, and for a lot of its life it was sitting in the back seat of my or not the back seat, but behind the seat of my grandfather's truck. So the stock does have a lot of scratches and nicks in the wood, and just a lot of finish wear on it. So a lot of history in this gun, a lot of family history, so that's kind of cool. There's really not a whole lot else to say about it. Capacity is 1. The rifling in the barrel was actually pretty good. I still have to do a little bit more cleaning on the barrel and just a little bit more cleaning on the gun overall. But overall, out of the 5 guns that I inherited from my grandfather, this is one of the better ones. It was really easy to get all the rust off and just clean it up, because it is a very simple gun to take apart and all that. So one of these days I'll take it out, put a few rounds through it, and do a shooting video with it, and just see how accurate it is. It is a very long rifle. I mentioned this in my other video that I did. I'm not sure how long the barrel actually is, but this gun is actually longer than my Marlin XT17, which is also a very long rimfire bolt action. So it's like an inch or two longer than that. So this is actually a very big gun for just being a single shot 22. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. That's my Stevens 53D, first gun I ever fired, first gun that my grandfather ever owned. A lot of family history, just a really neat piece of family history. So subscribe to my channel, like me on Facebook, follow me on VidMe. I'm RedneckMini14, and until next time, be safe.